In this video, I want to talk about how some of the biggest bass that live in your lakes will actually be the deepest during the post-spawn. Not in the middle of the winter, not during the middle of summer. Right now, during the post-spawn, some of your big female bass are out there in the deepest water they will be caught in all year long. And today I want to talk a little bit about the science of that. Now, before we get into the video, this one is brought to you by Fin Fishing, my apparel business. Guys, I have a number of new colored bass hats in. And for those of you that don't know, this is actually a wooden bass badge on the top. It comes from an old bourbon barrel. And I actually just got a few new colors of the bass hat in, including this awesome one right here. I know that this thing is gonna probably sell out come July, but I also have some of these other colors as well. I have a number of different colors, not just these. You can check them all out at Fin Fishing. It truly is the best way to help support this channel is by simply shopping there for your fishing gear. I'm hoping to have a lot more in the future. And thank you for all of you who have shopped there in the past. All right, let's talk about this post-spawn deep water fish. Now, for a number of years, this is something that I really didn't realize. As an angler, I always thought that the bass were probably going to be the deepest during the winter and the deepest during the summertime months. And while they can be deep in those times of the year, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the science and what happens in a lot of our fisheries and a lot of the water that we fish. Now, if you think about it, after bass spawn, there's a number of things that they will do. So I'm not saying that all the bass are going to do this. I'm not saying that all the biggest bass in the lake are going to do this, because there's definitely a number of big bass that will stay shallow. They will stay shallow. They will eat bluegill. They will stay shallow. They will eat shad that are starting to spawn. But what I've seen in a number of lakes across the country, from Florida to New York to obviously Ohio where I live, is that some of the biggest bass in your lake will go the deepest right after they spawn. And what I found is that there's a population that will suspend after they spawn, and they will go really deep. Now, when I say deep, this is going to be relative to the body of water that you are fishing. You know, for some of you anglers, deep may be 15 feet of water. It depends on kind of how the lake sets up. You know, if it's a highland reservoir, this is typically going to be deeper, clearer water lakes. That's going to be a lot deeper than 15 foot. In a lowland reservoir, 15 feet actually might be really deep. So you have to put it into context for the lakes that you are fishing. But I have seen that fish will actually go really deep. And the biggest reason is because they can, if that makes sense. What you find in the post-spawn, before the water temperatures have got really hot, is that the bass are not dealing with any kind of thermocline. Okay, now if you don't know anything about a thermoclines start to develop as water gets really warm. And what they do is the water will stratify. There will become different layers. You'll have kind of the top layer, you'll have the thermocline, and then you'll have the bottom layer. Now, right at the thermocline is typically where you have the most oxygen in the lake there and above. Below the thermocline of these lakes, where that water temperature really drops, it gets cold, there tends to be a lot less oxygen. And in some lakes, it is so little oxygen that bass will not go below a thermocline. They will actually stay more or less in the top part of that lake. So a lot of times in the summer, when these thermoclines start to develop, you will actually have fish that were deep that actually start to move shallower because the oxygen is starting to get depleted in their bodies of water. So they move shallower even though the weather temperature is getting hotter. And you know, when you get into August, September, and it's just 98 degrees and muggy and hot, and you think, man, the bass are probably super deep, you might have a thermocline that has developed in 12 foot of water. And so a lot of the populations of fish are actually in 12 foot of water in less. But during the immediate post-spawn, like I'm talking about in this video, you don't have a thermocline most of the time. The water temperatures haven't started, the water hasn't really stratified at this point. So therefore, bass can get as deep as they want. And I've seen that a lot of these females that are kind of just coming off the bed, you know, maybe they haven't eaten a whole lot, they will be very, very deep. For the last couple of years, some of the deepest bass that I've caught all year long are immediately after the spawn. And it'll be like deeper than a lot of guys think. And this is why I'm talking about this, is because sometimes you will catch these fish in such deep water that you're gonna have all this to yourself. You know, excuse me, a lot of guys are staying shallow. A lot of guys might be fishing or even shallower points. And look, there's gonna be fish, not all the fish, like I said, are doing the exact same thing. But these fish that have moved really, really deep are going to be deeper than a lot of guys even think to go fishing. And the best part is that sometimes they can be very schooled up. So some of these first schools that come off the bed in this deep water, man, it can be a lot of fun. Now, one of the best lures that I have found, there's two that I will fish through these fish. Now, the one is going to be some sort of a weighted swim bait of some sort. So like a Kitech style bait. And the reason that I like that is because I can cover a lot of water, and it's also like an easy meal for bass, and I can change the weight of my jig head depending on how deep I'm fishing. You know, if I'm fishing in 15 foot of water, a 3/8 ounce may be all that I need. If I'm fishing in 25 foot of water, maybe I move up to a 1/2 ounce or a 3/4 ounce. If I'm fishing in 40 foot of water, I might need to use a 3/4, a 1 ounce bait to get that bait down. But this allows me to cover a lot of water quickly. Now, I am obviously going to be using my electronics as much as possible in this situation because they're just going to help me find these fish. But usually my two-pronged approach is first with that little swim bait, and second, a drop shot. One of the most effective deep water baits that we have is a drop shot. And the best thing about drop shots is they catch little fish, they catch medium-sized fish, and they catch giant fish. Some of the biggest bass that I have ever caught in some of these waters, like the biggest bass I ever caught on the James River in Virginia was on a drop shot with spinning rod. The biggest bass I ever caught out of Lake Chickamauga, you know, like a deep crank hair jig, big worm type of lake, was on a drop shot with a spinning rod. Bass always love a drop shot. It is an easy meal during the post spawn. That's kind of my two-pronged approach during this time of the year. So what I'm saying is that you should try to look a little bit deeper when you start to hit this immediate post spawn, because you may find some real big fish in smaller areas, even schooled up. So if you guys enjoyed this video, you may enjoy this one. Also, if you want to help support this channel, click this link right here for Fin Fishing. I will see you guys tomorrow.